Gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Rogers, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 6672, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
72, a bill to reauthorize certain programs under the Public Health Service Act and the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act with respect to public health security and all hazards preparedness and response, and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device, and this is a 15-minute vote. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
A couple of dozen, 2 dozen bills on the House agenda this afternoon. They're taking a break here to vote on 3 of them, debated earlier. 15-minute vote on this first series of votes on the House floor. Off of the floor, discussions continue. In fact, we'll resume this afternoon with the House Rules Committee meeting to consider Speaker Boehner's Plan B, his Plan B to allow taxes to rise for those making more than $1 million per year. That House Rules Committee will meet this afternoon at 3, and we will have live coverage for you on C-SPAN 3 and also on cspan.org. President Obama earlier today, just a short while ago, speaking to reporters and others at the White House, announcing that Joe Biden will lead a task force in the administration to look at gun violence and methods and possibly legislation that can be adopted in response to the killings in Connecticut last week. We will show you that in just a minute. You can also see that in our video library at cspan.org. One of several briefings we've covered today looking at the issue of gun violence. On Capitol Hill, Barbara Boxer introducing legislation, and on the House side, Democratic Leader Pelosi, Carolyn McCarthy, and many other Democrats talking about bringing the assault weapon ban back and also introducing other legislation as well. Again, A series of votes on the House floor, 3 votes. This first one is 15 minutes on a bill they debated earlier, a suspension bill dealing with pandemics, a reauthorization bill. And 2 5-minute votes will follow that. Off the floor, we are expecting to hear from House Speaker John Boehner, who's going to update reporters on the discussions on the fiscal cliff. Politico reported earlier today that substantive talks have grinded to a halt since Speaker Boehner's announcement Tuesday to pursue a Plan B bill that would raise taxes on the income of above $1 million, but does not deal with the across-the-board spending cuts known as the sequester. So we expect to hear from Speaker Boehner in just a couple of minutes. We'll bring it to you live if we can during these votes. He's supposed to come out at 2:15. And again, the Rules Committee is meeting today. They've now moved that meeting time to 5:30 Eastern, and we will have live coverage for you. The House is in the first of 3 votes, this one dealing with public health security and preparedness. 15-minute vote and 2 5-minute votes will follow. We expect to hear from House Speaker John Boehner updating reporters on the fiscal cliff discussions and where things stand with his proposal, his Plan B proposal, that would raise taxes on the income of those making $1 million or more. That's coming up at 2:15 Eastern. We hope to have it live during votes here on C-SPAN, but we can tell you it absolutely will be live on C-SPAN 3, our companion network. In addition, at 3 p.m. Eastern, a news conference from a group of conservatives up on the Capitol, including Representative Tim Huelskamp and others. Former Attorney General Ed Meese should be speaking there, and also Brent Bazell with Heritage Action with For America. He's a For America chairman. That's happening at 3 o'clock Eastern. Again, that'll be live on C-SPAN 3. And the Rules Committee meeting to consider the Plan B proposal has been moved back a bit. That'll happen at 5:30 Eastern. That as well on C-SPAN 3, also on cspan.org and C-SPAN Radio. As this vote continues, we'll take you live to Speaker Boehner and his briefing with reporters.
And I hope the President will get serious soon about providing and working with us on a balanced approach. Tomorrow, the House will pass legislation to make permanent tax relief for nearly every American, 99.81% of the American people. And then the President will have a decision to make. He can call on Senate Democrats to pass that bill, or he can be responsible for the largest tax increase in American history.
Well, very brief comments from Speaker Boehner talking about his proposal announced yesterday, his Plan B proposal on the fiscal cliff. This in response to the President's offer earlier this week on raising taxes for those making above $400,000. The Speaker yesterday with his Plan B, which would raise taxes on incomes of over $1 million, but doesn't deal with any of the across-the-board spending cuts, the sequester set to take place on January the 1st. We'll have those remarks for you again in just a bit in our vote here on the House floor. A couple of votes here. This is the first of 3. And just to update you as well, we expect to hear from a group of conservatives from Capitol Hill at 3 p.m. Eastern. That will be carried live on our companion network, C-SPAN 3. The Speaker briefly talking there about his Plan B, and that is being considered this afternoon by the House Rules Committee. They'll meet this afternoon at 5:30 Eastern. We will also have live coverage of that on C-SPAN 3.
affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is a vote on the motion of the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Brady, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1845 as amended, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1845, the bill to provide for a study on issues relating to access to intravenous immune globulin IVIG for Medicare beneficiaries at all care settings, and a demonstration project to examine the benefits of providing coverage and payment for items and services necessary to administer IVIG in the home.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
The House came in this afternoon at noon Eastern. They have a couple of dozen bills on their agenda. They've debated a bunch of them, and they're voting on 3 here. The second of 3, this is H.R. 1845, deals with Medicare access. It's a 5-minute vote. Just about 10 minutes ago, less than 10 as a matter of fact, Speaker Boehner came out to update reporters quickly on the status of his proposal, so-called Plan B. Here's what he had to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. Republicans continue to work toward avoiding the fiscal cliff. The President's offer of $1.3 trillion in revenues and $850 billion in spending reductions fails to meet the test that the President promised the American people, a balanced approach. And I hope that the President will get serious soon about providing and working with us on a balanced approach. Tomorrow, the House will pass legislation to make permanent tax relief for nearly every American, 99.81% of the American people. And then the President will have a decision to make. He can call on Senate Democrats to pass that bill, or he can be responsible for the largest tax increase in American history.
That was Speaker Boehner from just about 10 minutes ago or so. After that, number of tweets. This one from John Stanton, who's the bureau chief of BuzzFeed, who says, so apparently Boehner has enough votes to pass his Plan B for now. He also says in his tweet, Heritage Action, others are whipping hard against it, though. And on that, there's a group of conservatives set to have a news conference coming up at 3 p.m. Eastern. One of those is the head of Heritage Action, Michael Needham, also Representative Tim Huelskamp of Kansas, and Brent Bazell, the chairman of For America. That group of conservatives, the news conference at 3 o'clock Eastern, and that will be live on C-SPAN 3. Also this afternoon, Leader Pelosi, of the Democratic leader, is holding a news conference at 3 o'clock as well. We'll tell you about our coverage of that. And at 5:30 Eastern today, the House Rules Committee is meeting to consider both Speaker Boehner's proposal and a Democratic alternative for the fiscal cliff, the $1 million proposal, those making more than $1 million on Plan B that Speaker Boehner offered. That meeting of the Rules Committee in the House coming up this afternoon at 5:30, and we'll have that live on C-SPAN 3.
401. The nays are 3, two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table, and without objection, the title is amended. The unfinished business is the question on suspending the rules and agreeing to House Resolution 668 as amended, which the clerk will report by title.
House Resolution 668, resolution to refer H.R. 5862, a bill making congressional reference to the United States Court of Federal Claims pursuant to Sections 1492 and 2509 of Title 28 United States Code, the Indian Trust-related claims of the Quapaw Tribe of Oklahoma, Ogapaw, as well as its individual members.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to the resolution as amended? So many as in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds being held. The gentlelady from California.
Ask for the yeas and nays.
Oh.
Ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
And it'll be the last vote in this series, and the House back to debating more suspension bills. Off the floor, discussions continue about the fiscal cliff with the House Rules Committee meeting set this afternoon. Just to let you know about some of our coverage plans related to the fiscal cliff discussions. This afternoon at 3 o'clock, a group of conservatives, including former Attorney General Ed Meese, will speak to reporters. That's coming up at 3, and that'll be on C-SPAN 3. Meanwhile, Democratic Leader Pelosi also holding a briefing on Capitol Hill. We'll have that for you at 3. That'll be online at cspan.org. And then this afternoon at 5:30, the House Rules Committee meets to consider the rule for Speaker Boehner's Plan B proposal, which would raise taxes on the income of above $1 million. That's at 5:30 Eastern. It'll be on C-SPAN 3. It will be on C-SPAN Radio and also online at cspan.org. The president earlier today was asked several questions about discussions on the fiscal cliff, and among his statements he said it's time for the GOP to, quote, peel off the partisan war paint and pass a deal on the cliff. This was part of the president's brief news conference this afternoon, talking about what the administration plans to do in terms of gun violence. In the wake of the Connecticut school shootings, President Obama tasked the administration today with creating some concrete proposals to stem further gun violence. In fact, he appointed Vice President Joe Biden to lead the effort to find recommendations in a month. As he said, he will make some sort of statement about it during his State of the Union address, which is just about a month away, January 21st.
The yeas are 397. The nays are 5.
Mr. Butterfield.
Votes aye.
Mr. Butterfield votes aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 398. The nays are 5. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. House will be in order. The chair lays before the House the following enrolled bill.
H.R. 3783, an act to provide for a comprehensive strategy to counter Iran's growing hostile presence and activity in the Western Hemisphere and for other purposes.
Yep. Be in order.
What's our next bill here, Brian? Thank you.
House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Johnson, seek recognition?
To suspend the rules and pass a bill H.R. 1509 as amended to amend the Title II of the Social Security Act to prohibit the inclusion of Social Security account numbers on Medicare cards.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1509, a bill to amend Title II of the Social Security Act to prohibit the inclusion of Social Security account numbers on Medicare cards.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Johnson, and the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days which to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous materials in the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
Today the House considers...
Gentleman will suspend.
Yeah.
Gentleman may proceed.
Today the House considers legislation that has long been a bipartisan priority of the Committee on Ways and Means, protecting seniors from identity theft. Identity theft is a lasting and devastating crime. Victims spend years having to prove who they are while monitoring credit reports, fending off collection agencies for charges they never made, or the IRS for taxes they don't owe. Some are even picked up by law enforcement for crimes committed by the ID thief using their name. Seniors have every reason to be concerned. According to the Department of Justice, 8.6 million households experienced identity theft in 2010. Over 1 million of these households are headed by seniors at risk of having their Social Security number stolen. Fraud involving government documents accounted for 27% of the identity theft complaints in 2011, making it the most common and fastest growing form of identity theft complaint, according to the Federal Trade Commission. Mr. Speaker, we know Americans are told not to carry their Social Security cards in case a wallet or purse is lost or stolen. Yet, seniors are told they must carry their Medicare card, which displays their Social Security number. Not only does this not make sense, it puts seniors at risk. The largest seniors organization in America agrees. According to AARP, quote, all Medicare patients must carry a benefits card that displays their Social Security number. Such easy access to sensitive information makes the cards a hot target for identity thieves who want to file false claims. And, Mr. Speaker, the Medicare Identity Theft Prevention Act of 2012 requires the Secretary of Health and Human Services, in consultation with the Commissioner of Social Security, to take action to ensure Social Security numbers no longer are used on Medicare cards. It requires the Secretary to develop a cost-effective way to do that, with as little impact as possible on Medicare beneficiaries and health care providers. Further, funds from the Medicare Improvement Fund are made available to pay for implementation costs. According to CBO, the costs of this bill are fully offset and would not increase the deficit.
From Washington is correct. The House is not in order. Will the House please be in order? Oregon. The gentleman from Oregon is correct. The House is not in order.
Thank you.
The gentleman from Texas may resume.
Lastly, the bill directs GAO to conduct a study to determine whether the Medicare program should use smart card technology, an idea advanced by my colleagues Jim Gerlach of Pennsylvania and Earl Blumenauer of Oregon to prevent theft, waste, fraud, and abuse in the Medicare program. Members should know this isn't the first time CMS has been directed to act. Starting in 2002, GAO first called for ending the use of Social Security numbers on government documents. Then in 2005, the fiscal year 2006 Labor HHS bill urged the Secretary to accelerate planning for removing Social Security numbers and asked for a report. And then in 2007, OMB issued a directive to all federal agencies to develop plans for reducing the use of Social Security numbers. And then in 2008, my colleague Lloyd Doggett and I brought a bill to the floor that passed by voice vote to end the use of Social Security numbers on Medicare cards. Most recently, at an August 2012 Ways and Means Joint Subcommittee hearing, GAO questioned CMS' lack of a serious plan to stop displaying the Social Security number. While CMS fails to act, both the public and private sector are working to protect their customers and businesses from identity theft. The Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs are removing Social Security numbers from their ID and medical cards, and I applaud them for taking that action. Private health insurance and many others ended the use of Social Security numbers on public documents a long time ago. And even CMS knows better. It won't allow insurers in the Medicare Advantage and Part D drug benefit program to use Social Security numbers on their enrollees' cards. The time to protect our nearly 50 million Americans carrying Medicare cards with their personal information is long overdue. It's high time that Congress passes this common sense bill. There's no reason why American seniors have to continue to be put at risk of ID theft. We need to act right now, and I urge all my colleagues to vote yes and pass the Medicare Identity Theft Prevention Act today. With that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas, Mr. Johnson, reserves his time. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett.
Thank you. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Johnson, for your leadership on this. I want to concur fully with the remarks that you've made. As you've indicated, in 2008, I filed this piece of legislation. With Chairman Johnson's help at that time, we worked together. We passed it through the House, and the Senate failed to act. And since that time, whether it was under a Republican or Democratic administration, there has not been sufficient priority placed on this by the Center for Medicare Services to address this question of privacy. It is a serious matter. It clearly requires legislation, and this time hopefully where the Senate will respond to our bipartisan initiative and get it passed into law. There are indeed about 48 million Americans, seniors, individuals with disabilities, who are carrying in their wallet or purse today something that makes them vulnerable to identity theft, and that something is their Medicare card. Apart from the Social Security card itself, the Medicare card is the most frequently issued government document that displays a Social Security number, and that practice invites foul play. It was back in 2007 when the Bush administration, recognizing this danger by the overuse of Social Security numbers, sent out a directive to federal agencies to eliminate the use of Social Security numbers and explore alternative identifiers. Despite this directive, Medicare has not yet taken appropriate steps to remove the numbers from Medicare cards. Although we have bipartisan agreement on the severity of the problem, we also have had bipartisan administrative inaction when it comes to addressing it. Clearly, we need congressional action. To protect both the savings and the peace of mind of Medicare beneficiaries, this bipartisan legislation would require Medicare to take steps that private companies, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Veterans Affairs have already taken to protect the identities of those that they serve. Every time that a senior or an individual with disabilities hands over their Medicare card to a health care provider or elsewhere, they are handing over the keys to their financial security. With increasing sophistication by identity thefts, inaction here again is simply unacceptable. Seniors who have saved, who have built a lifetime of financial security, and their reputations are all at stake. Their savings and their credit should not be put needlessly at risk if someone steals a Medicare card or gets misplaced or left with a provider by mistake. Medicare should make sure that it does no harm to the financial security and credit rating of those that it serves with health care security. This act will help to ensure that the government better protects our seniors, denying thieves access to this critical data. Inaction would jeopardize in a continuing way the safety of so many. This legislation, when we previously introduced it, was supported by Consumers Union, the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, the Silver-Haired Legislature nationally and in Texas, as well as the Elder Justice Coalition. Seniors confront many threats to retirement security these days, but this bill will be directed toward one that we can do something about immediately, and that's those who would swindle our seniors. I urge adoption of the measure and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett, reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Kansas, Mrs. Jenkins, a member of the Committee on Ways and Means.
The gentlelady from Kansas is recognized for 1 minute.
And I thank the gentleman from Texas for yielding and would like to commend Chairman Johnson and Congressman Doggett for their leadership on this legislation. Mr. Speaker, today there are nearly 50 million Medicare beneficiaries who are told to carry their Medicare cards with them at all times, while simultaneously being told not to carry their Social Security card. They are told that carrying their Social Security card in their purse or wallet puts them at risk of identity theft, which is a problem that affects 1 million seniors yearly. The irony is that the Medicare cards all feature beneficiary Social Security numbers prominently. This means that our seniors are in a tight spot. They are at risk of identity theft simply by carrying their Medicare card with them. I support passage of this bill because it would ensure that a person's Social Security number is no longer printed on their Medicare card. This bipartisan common sense measure will ensure that the 115,000 Medicare enrollees in my district will be safe from identity theft. I yield back.
Ms. Expired. Gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett.
Mr. Speaker, one addition to this bill from 2008 deals with the question of Medicare fraud. The gentleman from Oregon is the co-sponsor of legislation dealing with that and a member of the Ways and Means Health Subcommittee. At this time, I would yield him 4 minutes to discuss this important addition.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the gentleman's courtesy, and I strongly identify with the persistence and the eloquence from Chairman Johnson with my friend Mr. Doggett to deal with this problem of identity theft. The hearing was a little unnerving. I appreciate the follow-through, and hopefully something will happen. I identify strongly with the arguments you made on behalf of it. But I would like to focus, if I could, on one other element, because it's directly related, and I see my good friend Mr. Gerlach is here on the floor, and I anticipate we'll be speaking to it as well. We should be concerned about maybe learning another lesson from the Department of Defense, who, as the Chairman mentioned, are already using this for their purposes. Being able to use an opportunity for a common access card for Medicare will have very important application to the area of rampant Medicare fraud. $60 billion is a number we have heard in our subcommittee. It could be more, it could be less, but it's a huge sum of money, and it compounds going forward. Our first concern, however, should be about the quality of care for the senior citizens who receive Medicare. And the Common Access Card, being able to digitally track this information, provides security for these transactions, makes it less likely that there will be mistakes, be able to follow up and follow through. Second, it will in fact help us stop fraud. This is an area that has been relentlessly abused, where people order. There are changes in the orders. Sometimes orders are actually made that aren't that are entirely different than what people had requested. Having this secure card will enable people to be able to have the security of the transaction, know where it's at, greater accuracy of billing, track mistakes, stop fraud. And I cannot say strongly enough that I think it's important for us to move. I appreciate the work that was done putting a study over the next 2 years about this provision. But with all due respect, I hope as this legislation works its way through Congress, and I hope that it is yet enacted while we are still here for the 112th Congress, that we're able to be serious not just about a 2-year study. This is an area that we ought to be able to implement pilot projects right now across the country. It would make a difference for the administration. I think there's no question we could come to scale very quickly, help senior citizens in the reliability of their Medicare coverage, reduce fraud, and allow government to track our activities going forward. There's a lot of talk about the fiscal cliff and the need to save money and the back and forth that's going on here. But this provision that Mr. Gerlach and I are advancing is a simple, common sense, bipartisan proposal that would help us right now improve service, save money, and improve the reliability of the system. I would hope that this is the sort of provision that would find favor by our colleagues in the House and with the administration. Working together, we can implement those pilot projects sooner rather than later and have broader application for great positive effect for Medicare, for the taxpayers, and I respectfully yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Gerlach, who is a member of the Committee on Ways and Means.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to first acknowledge the hard work and leadership of my colleague on the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Johnson of Texas, as well as our committee chairman, Mr. Camp of Michigan, Both gentlemen recognize the urgency of finding practical solutions for protecting seniors and taxpayers against easily preventable Medicare waste, fraud, and improper payments and the ever-increasing threat of identity theft. Mr. Speaker, whenever someone in Washington proposes a new idea for shrinking costs and saving precious taxpayer dollars, we usually receive a barrage of questions from folks concerned that they will have to do with less and possibly see services they depend upon curtailed in some way. This legislation we're considering today contains provisions that would kickstart a critically important process that ultimately may allow Congress to use common sense technology in cutting an estimated $60 billion a year in improper and fraudulent Medicare payments, while making sure seniors enrolled in the Medicare program receive the care and treatment they have earned. We're attempting to cut costs without restricting access to care. Specifically, this legislation authorizes a study by the Government Accounting Office examining the benefits of a proposed pilot program designed to modernize the Medicare card that almost every senior carries with him or her in a wallet or a pocketbook. Under the proposed pilot program, as introduced in legislation by my colleague Congressman Blumenauer and myself, this smart card technology would be used to protect personal information of Medicare participants, prevent phantom billing for procedures that were never performed or products that were never purchased, and speed payment to doctors and hospitals while reducing costly billing errors. While today's Medicare card provides seniors access to the health care services they need, that small piece of plastic can provide the narrow opening and scrupulous individuals exploit to snatch identities and cheat taxpayers and seniors out of billions of dollars every year. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services estimates that waste, fraud, and abuse costs the Medicare program about $60 billion a year, nearly 10% of the entire annual Medicare budget, or approximately $48 billion a year, is lost to improper payments, according to a report issued by the Government Accountability Office. That's a significant amount of human resources and financial resources that are better used helping our seniors pay for hospital visits, prescription drugs, and other vital medical care. The Department of Defense has issued more than 20 million secure smart cards to authenticate and verify users to access to programs and facilities. To date, the Department of Defense reports not a single common access card has been counterfeited. We cannot stop improper payments in the Medicare system until we find a way to know and to verify who is authorized to provide and receive benefits. A comprehensive study is an important first step that will make sure we get the job done right for taxpayers, seniors, doctors, and other health care providers. Taxpayers and seniors deserve the protection against identity theft and fraud that this legislation would provide, and I urge my colleagues to begin the process of putting in place a simple, low-cost solution for bringing the Medicare card into the 21st century. I thank the gentleman for leading this effort, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett.
At this time, I would yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New Jersey and the ranking member of the Health Subcommittee on the Commerce Committee, Mr. Pallone.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized